Frisco Wrestling's living legend, and you're watching Monty and the Pharaoh.
The best thing, if you're injured, is to grow up and be a man. Come on.
All right, welcome to another special edition of Monty and the Pharaoh, seen only here at Village Connection Radio, live from Rockstar Studios in this special Saturday edition. On the board is none other than Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, how are you, sir?
Hey-oh, good morning.
And to the right of me is none other than the star of the show, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you?
Kiss hangover. Hello.
Yeah, we all have a kiss hangover. But more importantly, in the room is none other than one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, Mr. Tito Santana. Tito Santana, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here.
All right. So, have at him, Jimmy Pharaoh.
Alrighty, as always, we have to have our esteemed introduction for our esteemed guest, ladies and gentlemen. Mercedes Solis, born May 10th, 1953, better known by the ring name Tito Santana, American semi-retired professional wrestler at this point, stayed a babyface his entire career, best known for appearances with the World Wrestling Federation between 79 and 83, where, of course, he was two-time WWF Intercontinental Champion, twice held the WWF Tag Team Championship as well, also 1989 King of the Ring tournament winner, and wrestled at the first 9 WrestleMania events. Growing up being big Pro Wrestling Illustrated readers, he was the PWI Tag Team of the Year in 1979 with Ivan Putski. PWI has ranked him in the top 500 numerous times in 95 and 51. Over in the 2003 PWI years in 93, ranked him number 70 of the PWI 100 best tag teams during the PWI years with, of course, the legendary Rick Martel, and ranked him 92 of the 100 best tag teams in the PWI years in 2003 with the great Polish power Ivan Putski. The resume goes on and on and on. This is a true legend, as I said, of the WWF and the 2004 Hall of Fame class, no less. Ladies and gentlemen, Tito Santana.
Woo! Tito! Unbelievable. I'm an awe, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We grew up watching it a long time.
This is up there on our scale. What do you got, Mike?
Well, Tito, let me ask you a question. You grew up as probably trying to make pro football, correct?
Yes, I did. I played football at West Texas State, where you guys probably know there's a lot of professional wrestlers that came out of West Texas State, and my first interest was, playing football.
So why professional wrestling?
Well, the quarterback at West Texas State, I don't know if you guys remember, or I'm sure you remember him, because he's a big name also, Tully Blanchard.
Of course.
Tully Blanchard's father was a promoter in San Antonio. And my junior year, they planted the seed. Tully says, my dad thinks you could have a big career in professional wrestling. But he says, I know that you, because I wasn't a wrestling fan, because in Texas it came on really late. So I never watched wrestling. So
we like kind of scoff, like, I don't want to be a professional wrestler. What are you talking about?
Right, because I didn't know anything about professional wrestling.
What position did you play in football, please?
I was a tight end.
I wonder what it was that made him see this in you. Why you? Did you ask him why me?
Well, because the father told me, he says, he talked to me, he said, Merced, you're a big Mexican, you're tall Mexican, you don't have too many tall Mexicans around.
Wow.
Okay.
And he said, and you're not a bad-looking guy. He said, you could have a great career in professional wrestling.
This was Joe Blanchard?
This was Joe Blanchard,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that like a good old boys network at first? Right, because professional wrestling was dominantly a white man's sport, to be honest with you, right? So, I mean, did it make you feel uncomfortable? Were they wearing their cowboy shit kickers and, that type of thing?
Being from Texas, everybody was.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
You had them yourself.
I mean,
Okay.
you listen to the girls talk. You're either into the way they sound or they sound horrible. With a cowboy accent. But
Did Tully have his eyes on wrestling too back in college days too? I mean, obviously his dad's in the business, but I mean, was he
Tully
looking to be a wrestler as well?
Tully was doing it in the summer. Making some pretty good money. So Tully was ahead of me in as far as the ring goes. And Tully's turned out to be a great talent. Every professional wrestler that had a father that did it, for some reason, they just caught on,
Natural.
Yeah.
How do you wind up being trained by Bob Orton Sr.?
Well, when I first started, I decided I tried, I did 2 years of professional football, one with the Chiefs and one with, I ended up going to Canada.
Canada, right.
I told them after the Chiefs deal, I got cut, then I went to Canada and spent the rest of the year there. I said, I want to play one more year, and then I'd like to start training. And that's what happened. I went back and played, the following year. Came back at the end of November and started. I told my family had no idea that I was going to become a professional wrestler. I spent Christmas at home with my mom, and I said, I'm going to become a professional wrestler. I'm going to San Antonio and I'm going to start training. And my mom says, what does a professional wrestler do? And, and I kind of explained it a little bit, but, from there, I went to Tampa, Florida. Tully was going to start in the territory as a wrestler because Tully was polished already. So he came in to start. They brought him in to go into wrestling. I just started training in the ring. Barry Orton was in there training, and the father was the one that was training. I'm talking about Bob Orton Sr., not this Bob Orton.
Right,
Sr.,
correct. Yep,
the one before then.
Mm-hmm.
And
now, did you say you were training with Barry Orton also?
I was training with Barry, yeah.
And Junior, Bob Orton Jr. too.
Bob would come in once in a while.
Yeah, and
worked out with us, and. Bob was tag team champions, I believe, with Bob Roop at the time, and I used to admire Bob was always a great worker in the ring,
Right.
So your first dab in the pro ranks is a little bit of Florida, a little bit of Georgia, correct? Before you got to Vince.
Yeah, well, I started out in Florida, and I ended up having 4 matches. I was there about 3 or 4 months, and Jim Barnett owned part of Florida, and Jim Barnett took a liking to me, and all of a sudden I hear that he wants to bring me into Atlanta, and I had 4 matches when I left Florida, and they were going to give me a big push. Well, I had to learn how to crawl 4 matches. I wasn't ready to work on top anywhere, because back then, you guys remember that the interviews had to be polished. Everybody that was on top, they could talk,
and it wasn't scripted either, right?
It wasn't
you
scripted.
had to come up
shoot
with
from
your
the hip.
stuff.
You had to
Right.
be sharp. You had to be quick. You had to be to the point. You had to get over.
That's right.
Since you're rolling into that, quick question: what's more important to be a professional wrestler, a great professional wrestler, mat skill or mic skills?
Well, I don't know, but I remember Mad Dog Vachon, who, when I was I made a few moves, ended up in Minnesota. In Minnesota, the AWA, they had some, fantastic mic people. You had Baron Von Raschke, Mad Dog Vachon, the Bruiser, and they all could, unbelievable speakers on the mic. Ken Patera and Vachon, Mad Dog Vachon used to say, wrestling is 10%, interviews is 90%. You sell your tickets with your interviews. And that's the way it was. I mean, I don't know if you know,
Yeah.
Roddy Piper. I mean,
Oh my God.
you know, he sold tickets with,
Yep.
you know, with his mouth. You
Ric
know?
Flair.
What did you think of
Guys
your
like
interview
Ric Flair.
style? Did you think you were one of the top interview guys?
I wouldn't consider myself in the same level. I had a different style, I think. You know, I didn't consider myself in the likes of Mad Dog Vachon
Well,
or
to be
Roddy Piper.
To
you
be
know?
fair to you, though, doesn't the face require a different approach than a heel in a promo? He's
Right.
got to be different. It's going to be a different effect. I always felt that your energy level, whether you were doing a promo or you were in the ring, and by the way, your matches hold up fantastically over the years, your energy level is off the charts. So as a heel, you were delivering what you needed to deliver to the fans. Now, I want to ask you, how do you wind up with Vince McMahon? You basically just barely get your toes in the water when it comes to Florida and Georgia, and boom, it seems like you're at Vince fairly quick. What happened there? How do you get to Vince?
Well, it did happen very quick. You know, I never expected to get New York. I knew that they were selling out Madison Square Garden every Monday, pretty much. On a
Did this
regular
intimidate
basis.
you when you were contacted? Is this too fast, too soon, by
No.
any chance?
No.
Or are you just excited, let's go for it?
Yeah, I was just excited. But from Atlanta, I went to Charlotte, spent a year there, and then Blackjack Mulligan and Dick Murdoch bought Amarillo territory, and I went to college in Amarillo, in Kenyon, and they were going to bring me in and make a big Mexican star, they told me. I mean, the carrot again. And I get there, and I was a baby face, and Dick Murdoch was a baby face, and Blackjack wasn't there. My first TV taping, I go to do TV, and I have a draw with Stan Lane, and I know that if they're going to give you a big push, I had only been in the business about 2.5 years. I know if they're going to give you a big push, you're not going to get a draw on TV. Mm-hmm. So right there, I knew
Something's up.
You know, something's up.
Yeah.
So I ended up staying there 2.5 months before I started in New York. Andre the Giant and I had become friends. I met Andre the Giant before I moved to Florida. I started out in Texas just as a referee, and I became friends with Andre. And then when I went to Atlanta, I had a little Granada, and I was the low man in the totem pole. So Ole Anderson says, "You're going to go pick up Andre the Giant at the airport." And I had a little Granada, got in my car, and he broke my seat.
That is hilarious.
What, did he put his head out the window?
No, wait a minute. This is your first time you meet Andre? Is it picking him up in the Granada?
Well, I had just vaguely met him before, and
Right.
then I picked
What
him
color
up.
was the Granada? I
Black.
wrote
It was black.
I want the full
Fucking
picture.
hilarious.
That's hilarious.
So
Good friend to have. Good
yeah.
friend to have.
So
Okay.
I got a bigger car, and whenever Andre was in town, you know, Andre knew he was going to travel with me. You know, I took a, you know, he was going to travel with me. You know, he had an open invitation, and he was a very nice guy. All of a sudden, he comes to Amarillo because Andre would travel all over the world, and I mean, he was the eighth wonder of the world. So I partied with Andre. I was single, you know, and I did party with Andre. And
Oh boy.
I let him stay in my apartment. As a matter of fact, I let him stay in my bedroom, and I started laughing because his legs were hanging over. I saw him sleeping. But
Well, here's the first hard question.
Let me
Okay,
finish this.
go ahead.
Unknown to me, Andre leaves,
Yeah.
and he takes a tape from me wrestling in Amarillo and brings it to Vince McMahon Sr.
boy.
Okay.
And I had no idea.
Oh, boy.
And next, before you know it, I'm on my way to New York.
So Senior calls you.
Yeah.
Oh, great. All right, back to the Andre thing real quick. So he stays in your apartment, right? So did you see the HBO documentary on Andre?
Yeah.
How'd you like it?
I thought it was done.
I thought it was
pretty well.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Really nice.
So here's my big question to you: did you have to clean up the bathtub? Because you certainly couldn't use your toilet bowl, right?
Well,
that is bizarre.
Hey, listen, they mentioned in the documentary that the man could not, you know,
There was limitations.
like
where he
there was
went.
limitations
Yeah.
on what he could do.
yeah. Well, I don't remember.
Having an issue. That's good. That's good,
I
Tino.
don't, but you guys got to remember, I was single, and and I was partying quite a bit myself. So maybe it was there. And I didn't really pay
All I'm
attention
saying
to
is,
it.
I would be sweating it. Like, where's this guy going to go to the bathroom in my apartment when he leaves? What am I doing? You know what I mean? But anyway.
How many beers could that man consume?
I heard that at one sitting, he drank 116 beers.
Dear Lord.
You know, besides besides a little bit of wine and stuff.
Wow.
We used to travel and go to different bars and you know, because Andre had been around for quite a while. A lot of these bars had those big mugs. That was Andre's mug. Nobody else used it. So I mean, he drank a lot more than he ate. I didn't see him eat too often.
Ooh.
How long could you drink with him before you were done?
Now, you were young, so I expected
Yeah,
you
you
a
gotta
couple of
get-
hours
yeah,
here,
expect-
right?
expect
You
to
hang
hang
in
it
for a
in there
little
a
while,
little
right?
It's true.
You know, in Texas, the beer was a little weaker. I don't know if you guys knew that. You know,
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Why is it weaker?
I don't know.
It's a little
They
surprising.
had like a 2 point something, you know, the Coors.
Wow. So Austin's really not all that.
But
right.
Interesting.
I could put away a case myself.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm impressed.
You know, so
That's impressive.
But that's when I was single. You know, as I
What are
got
you down to
older,
like 3
I
beers
started-
now? What are you telling me? Funny. I don't even drink at all anymore after that, so I hear you. I wanted to ask you. You know, you get to Vince now, and it's very early in your career, and you win tag gold with Ivan Putski. Any thoughts on Ivan? Sometimes, I'm stepping on Mike's question a little bit. Forgive me, Mike. Sometimes we hear things that Ivan was a little rough in the locker room with certain people. Is there any truth
Or he
to
wasn't
that?
liked. Or he wasn't liked.
You know,
at all.
and
he
you know.
would never sell, right? And
Just curious, did he grate on some people in the back? We hear stories about him, about Mr. Fuji. Certain guys were not so nice from what we hear to certain wrestlers in the back. Was he a bit of a razzer to some of the guys, Putski?
I never saw it, but I know that I always heard that Ivan was about Ivan.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, you didn't hang with Ivan like when you guys were tag team champions? So you're
No.
just like, all right, bye.
yeah, we teamed up and we had our matches, and you know that was about it.
It was professional. That
Right.
was-
So is that a telling tale that you weren't a big fan of Ivan? Or just
No, it's just I think the age difference. You know,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
You know, he wasn't partying like me as a single guy. He was married, and you know, I think family was important to him also, and so he wasn't out partying like me as a single guy. You know, partying my butt off. You know, and having a great time.
Yeah.
Because professional wrestling was a great business to be in for a single guy. But I did know the stories that he wasn't well liked, and a lot of the guys, when they teamed me up with him, I guess Vince Sr. Asked him if he wanted to be teamed up with me, and he said yes. Well, he went for the weekend because he would always fly home on the weekend to watch his kids play sports, and then they fly him back. So when he was gone, had been in the business just a little over 3 years.
Right.
When they were going to team me up and make me a tag team champion with him. They're telling me, you know, Putski's not going to sell for you. He's going to make you do all the work, and
Then he hits
you
a
know,
Polish
so-
hammer
so-
and you
so
get
they-
out of
they're
And then he
just-
goes like this.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
they're
All right,
just-
Tito, you do all the work. I'll finish him off with the Polish hammer, and
Right.
I'm leaving. Bye.
So he comes back, and
Fair enough.
you know, I go talk to him, and I said, Ivan, I said, I mean, shit's coming down. I said, everybody keeps telling me that, you know, that you're going to do this and this and this. And then he says, Tito. He says, they're jealous. They're jealous of me.
Aye.
Nobody, do you know anybody else that can go home on the weekends? Like Vince would fly him back and pick up his rent-a-car. And, you know, he had a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah,
you know,
I bet.
Ivan Putski. So he says, they're jealous of me. Don't listen to him. I told Vince McMahon Sr. that I wanted to be your partner. You know, we worked in the ring. You know, he was okay as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
You know what? This sounds like, you know, maybe they were jealous of me. You know, and that day they're flying him back and forth. Everybody else is busting their ass.
Right.
Yeah, makes some
He
sense
was
to me.
way over with the crowd too, Putski.
I mean, he was.
He was.
He was way over with the crowd. Were you able to avoid? You know, you talk about partying. Were you able to avoid the hardcore drugs?
Yeah, I you know,
You realize how fortunate you are, and also smart that you were able to
Yeah.
avoid the hardcore drugs.
I came from migrant. We were migrant workers growing up, and you know, I was a migrant worker until I went to college. You know,
So it's basically just beer drinking or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but real quick, right? So, look, we're huge fans of yours. There's a couple pictures of you next to Hogan, you know, back in the day. You're a pretty big dude. You didn't juice at all?
No.
Really?
No.
Because I got to tell you, size-wise,
How'd you
you're
pull
there.
How'd you
You're
pull
there.
it off? How'd you pull it off? You must have been working out like what? How many hours a day? What was in your prime?
We used to work out 7 days a week. We were on the road all the time. We'd fly into a place. The first thing we'd do was go to the Mr. I used to hang out with the heels because the baby phase were your competition, not the heels.
Right.
So Mr. Wonderful was my best friend, and I could bench press 425, and Mr. Wonderful was juicing, and he couldn't do it.
And you didn't feel the pressure? You're in the
surely
age
they
where
must
these
have tried
guys
to
are all
offer it to you at
juicing.
some point,
You're
right?
in great shape. You just felt like,
Amazing
hey,
you were able
I'm
to
doing this
resist.
on my own. I'm good to go.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a point when I asked Vince, the Vince now.
Right.
I said, Vince, do you want me to juice? He says, no, you don't have to juice.
Wow.
Whoa.
He says,
Interesting. Vince says no. Wow.
and Tony Headless walked by.
He wants
And
it.
he says,
Tony's like, "You better
if
juice."
he wants to destroy his life, that's his choice. He
Oh,
says, but
wow.
I don't make the decisions on somebody juicing.
Right.
Wow.
He says, you don't
Very
have,
interesting.
He told me you don't have to juice.
Oh.
I mean, I still look like I'm in pretty good shape. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in
I'm,
great
Yes,
shape.
sir.
I'm not juicing. I don't juice. But I was a natural lifter. I was pretty strong. But I was an athlete pretty much all my life. So.
When you get done with this first run with the WWF, you move over to the AWA. You wrestled Nick Bockwinkel. Was this like a culture shock? The styles, the difference between the AWA and the way the WWF was run in those days. How different was it for you, and how easy was the transition? And working with a genius like Bockwinkel must have been pretty cool. Any thoughts on the AWA experience?
Well, the transition for me was fairly easy because the style in the AWA, they had wrestlers there. New York had the big guys. They were used to the Bruno Sammartino wrestling big guys, and
Right.
I mean, who was more powerful than Bruno Sammartino, benching 565 with natural also.
Yeah.
So the transition was easy for me. The difference that I saw over there, I mean, everybody on the card in the AWA was a top worker. I mean,
Mat workers.
yeah, Vern used to have 5 matches and sell out, St. Paul, which held about 20,000 people, with 5 matches. Everybody could work, and they'd give you time. Here, there's some guys that were horrible workers, and they were on top, but they had great gimmicks.
Right.
So it was a completely
But
different.
is there a huge money change, though, leaving New York? So, okay, WWE is the only thing in town now, but back in the day you had all your regionals, and, nowadays everybody says, when you made it to New York, that was the Mecca. Did you feel that way, or at that time was it different? Was it NWA was more important, AWA, or was New York the Mecca? When you made it there, that was it, and that was where all the money was?
Well, not necessarily, because like the payoffs in the AWA were
Right.
the first I was pretty young in my career. I had been in the business maybe a little over 4 years when I got to Minnesota, and my first $2,500 payoff for a show was in the AWA.
Wow.
Right.
Because they had less people to pay. The payouts were better. Everybody got paid pretty good.
Plus, when you went, the territories were all still very strong. WWF, NWA, AWA,
Right.
they were all strong
Yeah.
at that point.
So I made as much money in the AWA that I did when I was in New York, and you almost had like a normal life, because they had a plane, they had a Cessna that we went any distance. The main event guys, they'd fly 8 of us in the plane.
Wow.
So we'd leave at 5 and we'd be back by between 12 and 1, in the morning. And you spend a lot of time at home. In the summers, time was slow, and Vern would run maybe 6 to 8 shows a month. So you had a lot of days off. So I was working a lot less and making the same kind of money that I was making in New York. I loved, you could live almost like a normal life.
Do you feel that Vern Gagne and Lou Thez are almost underrated historically at this point compared to a Bruno Sammartino because Vince won the war, and the focus nowadays with the younger fans when they tune in, it's WWE history, WWF history. Do you feel like a giant like a Vern Gagne in the ring for how many decades, or Lou Thez, or almost like Bruno's equivalents, but just don't get that credit anymore because history turned out that, Vince was king? Any thoughts on that with those two guys? Because sometimes I wonder about where they rest in the history books. When we struggled to come up with the all-time great wrestlers, Gagne and Thez, to me, were like the Brunos of their territories for many years. Any thoughts on that?
Not really, because to me it was a different era, and to me it was all TV, right? Theirs were localized, and over here Vince McMahon became really big when he started expanding and taking over the world.
Any thoughts on Bockwinkel? I've always found him to be a master psychologist as far as his approach.
I mean, I had my first hour draw match with Nick Bockwinkel, and I was pretty young, and he carried me, and he.
How much did you learn from that one match?
It was unbelievable. He would tell me when to sell, when to make a comeback, and he would stop me, and he quite an education. I just talked to Bruce Pritchard a couple of months ago, and they brought me into Houston, and I had a few matches with Nick Bockwinkel, and I was supposed to. Bruce told me that the promoter in Houston, Paul Bosch, wanted to put the AWA title on me, and then that's about the time when I came back to New York the second time around.
Well, speaking of that, when you come back to New York, Vince calls you back. Does he talk to you about his plan of this takeover? And can you compare the promoters, Senior, Junior, and Vern Gagne? The difference between the three?
Well, to me, Vince Senior was very classy.
Everybody says
we
that.
hear this
Everybody
all the time.
says that.
He never made me any promises. But I left the AWA. I went back to Atlanta, Georgia, when I left the AWA. And again, they were going to make me a big, Ole says that we're going to make you an international star because our TV goes all over the world. TBS.
Kind of getting a feeling you're not a big fan of Ole.
No.
Okay.
He's the only guy that I have nothing good to say about.
Interesting.
Yeah. In the
Reasons
business.
just because he lied to you, or does it go beyond that?
He's pretty scummy.
Really now?
Yeah, he
Interesting.
He disrespected you. He called you Mexican and with disrespect and.
Did you ever want to just beat his ass?
Yeah,
Or was it? Or
yeah.
was Ole?
Matter of fact, yes.
Or was Ole? Ole pretty big dude too. So it's like, can I beat his ass? That type. Now, obviously, you're a strong guy.
I'm going with him.
So
No, he was the boss. So
yeah, you got to think about that
right,
one.
yeah.
Right.
yeah, but at
right.
this point, you've got a pretty big name. You're flown around. You're
That's
no
true. You
joke.
are established.
It's like, hey,
yourself,
I'm sure if you would have had a fight with him, maybe it would have caused issues within other promotions. But I get it.
Right. Yeah. No. I was always pretty low keyed. But what was the question that I was
So you go to
answering?
Atlanta. Ole promises you a whole bunch of stuff. You're going to head to the WWE.
Oh, okay.
So it's a two-pronged question.
So I leave Minnesota and I come to Atlanta and they gave me a guarantee. Tully Blanchard tried to get me to Texas, but I wanted a guarantee, and Tully wouldn't give me a guarantee. And Tully says, if you get over, you're going to make that guarantee that you're asking for. But by that time, I knew if I'm going to get over, you're going to get me over with TV. I can get myself over, but if you're going to put me in and have a draw the first day of TV taping, I understood the business, better by the time I got there. So they bring me in, and they're not doing nothing on TV. My wife delivered a baby shortly after we got to Atlanta. We bought a condominium, and I wanted to stay there. And Ole starts treating me like shit, and all of a sudden he says, Bill Watts wants you really bad in Louisiana. And I said, I don't want to go to Louisiana because Paul Orndorff, again, had told me he'd been there, says, the trips are very, very long. You're on the road all the time, and the payoffs are the shits. That's what Paul said.
And what were the rumors about Bill Watts?
Well,
did that kind of scare you off too?
No. It's just the payoffs were bad.
Okay.
That's the only thing that
Didn't have a good rep.
Right. So all of a sudden, I'm getting booked in Louisiana from Atlanta, 1 week in Louisiana, 1 week over here.
Wow.
And Ole and Bill Watts are working an angle on me, and they're going to make.
And they know. They know what's going on in your personal life. You just had a baby. You're trying to plant your feet, and they're doing this. Oh, I can understand why he feels this way.
Absolutely.
Okay, douchebaggery. Okay, yeah.
So Ole gets rid of my guarantee, and then Bill Watts is paying me way more than I was making in Atlanta. So they were working the shit out of me, and Paul would say, Bill wants you, but once you get there, I guarantee he's going to screw you.
Wow.
So I get to Louisiana. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore because I wasn't making diddly in Atlanta with Ole, and I told my wife, I said, I think we're gonna have to move to Louisiana.
Wow.
So I'm doing TV in Louisiana, and I tell Bill Watts, I figured I had some negotiating power, and I tell Bill Watts, I said, Bill, I'd like to talk to you about coming into Louisiana. This was on a Tuesday. He says, I can't talk to you right now. I'll talk to you when I get to Houston on Friday. I said, now he's freaking with me. Now he knows he's got me.
Mm.
So I called Vince Sr. and I said, Vince, I said, I'm going to leave Atlanta. I think I'm going to talk to Bill Watts about going to Louisiana. So he says, yeah. He says, Bill Watts is a good boy. I said, it'd be a good place for you to go. I get to Houston with Junkyard Dog. Junkyard Dog and I were traveling together. And I enter the dressing room, and Ernie Ladd says, son, you got a big decision to make. He says, Bill Watts wants you really bad here, and Vince McMahon wants you really bad in New York. And I said, shit. My wife is from Parsippany, New Jersey. I said, this, I can give you the answer right now.
There you go.
I want to go back. He says, no, Bill, don't say nothing. Don't tell Bill that I told you this.
Right.
So Bill comes in and he pulls me aside and he says, Tito, he says, you got a lot of talent. He says, but you need to get polished, and I can polish you here. I want you to stay here with me. And I said, Bill, I didn't bullshit him. I said, my wife's from New York. I said, I want to go to New York. So he says, well, Vince wants you to call him in the morning. So I had Vince's Senior's phone number, so I called Vince in the morning, and I called Vince, and there was a silence on the phone. It seemed like silence for forever. And I said, don't tell me that Vince is also on this freaking angle. Right. So I said, finally I got a little pissed off, and I said, Vince, the reason I called you is because I was told to call you. And he says, yep. Your starting date is May 10th. You're going to do TV May 10th and 11th. 9 weeks, every 3 weeks, you're going to be doing TV. He says, it's time for you to come home. He didn't make me any promises. And I said, that's all I needed to hear.
Wow.
So I called my wife and said, we're going to New York. And then Ole was pissed off because I was going to New York.
Well, was Vern pissed off that you left the AWA too?
No, I was for Vern for...
When you went from Vern to Atlanta, did Vern give you shit about that?
No. Vern booked me.
He booked you over. Okay.
He helped you.
Gotcha.
Back then you stay in a territory a year or two.
And then they moved you on.
Yeah, then they moved you on.
Okay. And they all worked together.
Right.
So it was all. So at this point, when you're coming up to New York with Senior, you knew about Junior. I guess you have met him a few times, right? He was interviewing back in the day. And,
right.
Did you know he was about to take over the company?
I had no idea.
So here's another question for you. Pedro Morales, who recently passed away,
right.
great icon. Did you feel that they were bringing you in to be the new Pedro Morales of the WWE?
To be honest with you, I didn't know much about Pedro at all. I didn't even know that he had been the world champion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I didn't know why they were bringing me in. He didn't make me any promises, I had no idea that I was going to become the Intercontinental Champion shortly after I got here. They had the plans. He didn't share any of that with me. So I just came in, and I was just happy for the opportunity to
Which,
come
by the
in.
way, really upset me, all right? Because you took down
Oh,
my boy
boy.
Don Morocco. I
Oh,
friggin'
boy.
hated you, bro.
This-
I hated you.
This is the portion of the program where you come into our lives. We were in junior high at the point that you come back for your second stay with Vince, right?
Uh-huh.
So I got him into wrestling around the time Sergeant Slaughter was doing his Cobra Clutch Challenge.
Right.
Within a couple of years, he decides he loves Magnificent Morocco. I decide I love Greg Valentine. You know where you fit in this picture, don't you, Tito?
Yes, I
Tito
do.
shows up, and we had just lived through the Pedro Morales experience where he took the belt from Don. Tito shows up and takes the title from Don Morocco. And these two 17-year-olds are
At
going,
that point-
"Rah!"
at that point-
I have to ask you, were you aware of how important this title was? Because this was when this belt really meant something. You were, after the champion, you were number 2. You had the most important belt besides the big one. Were you aware of how important the title was? And what was it like working with the Magnificent Morocco?
Well, the Magnificent Morocco was, he was an unbelievable champion, and he was a great worker.
Wow.
And
We
you
loved
guys
him in
know-
Florida.
You guys know that
Before we got to Vince.
that the wrestlers, we talk in the ring, right? You guys, I'm sure you guys know
course,
that.
yeah.
But Morocco spoke pidgin English. So he would go high spot, and I couldn't understand it.
Like that Hawaiian stuff?
Yeah, right. So
He wasn't eating a sandwich in the middle of the match.
So he threw me in the ring, and I said, "What's coming?" So I had to be pretty quick on my feet to anticipate what he was doing, But
Well, we couldn't tell. You guys were great. Great
no,
together.
he was a great worker. He was a great heel. And as far as his style of interviews,
Let me ask you that.
Who does it come?
He gets a little, on those interviews back in the day, he get a little bit crazy. Were you ever offended by some of the things he used to say?
No.
It was okay, just
A
a
little
joke.
crazy?
Well, because I knew it was,
He was
a work.
horrendous.
Okay.
Everything was a work.
Well, again, you came from the good old boy network where guys like Ole Anderson, it wasn't a work. They
Right.
were actually
Yeah.
pure 100% racist. Right.
Right.
So, I'd figure maybe your ire was up a little bit.
No, Bobby Heenan and Jesse the Body Ventura used to put me down, and there was, whenever those
Wait a minute.
whenever those top heels would put you down, they were really actually
They were helping you, yeah.
Chico Santana? Wasn't
Yeah.
that Jesse? That was Jesse. Oh, my God.
Flying burrito.
Yeah.
What the frig?
I didn't realize he was calling me on the air Chico
Right.
Santana,
Yeah. Okay.
and I'd go to different towns. And by this time I was a champion, and I was over pretty big, and everybody would be going, "Hey, Chico!" and I was getting pissed off,
He's getting
and then, racist bastards over here,
That's funny.
So-
That's funny.
What's this Chico
Yeah.
stuff? Did you go back to Jesse?
Then I happened to be watching this. Jesse's calling me Chico.
Classic.
They asked Jesse if he had anybody that he would work, if he had one choice.
Okay.
And he said Tito Santana, by far would be the guy that I would want to work against.
Wow. How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel good, because I felt I would always let the heel lead the match. I would adjust to the heel,
Right.
so I could wrestle with the little guy, I could wrestle with the big guy, and it's like a good, like if you're a good dancer. The man leads the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was the woman in the ring, being led by the heel.
Yeah.
And I, but they always talked about they loved working with me because when it was time for me to make a comeback, I had fire coming out of my, what.
Oh, yeah.
I let it go when the time was right. I'd let it go, and they used to love that.
Speaking of master heels, you weren't done haunting me and my partner back in those days. Once you were done haunting my partner with the Morocco deal, you come and you haunt me with my great favorite Greg the Hammer Valentine, another awesome heel. Can you describe what it was like working with Greg as compared to Morocco? What was he like in the ring with?
Greg was like a pit bull. Greg it would just keep coming at you, and I don't know if you guys remember. I was in there fighting for my life,
Bro, we remember everything. I remember we remember every match, everything you did. So yeah.
So I was the one that decided, okay, I'm going to give him this much, and I'm going to fight back. I'm going to give him this much and fight back. But by that time, I could call stuff in the ring because I became.
You've been around now. Yep.
I became, where I really understood the business and I understood my role as a babyface. So I could interject. I would call spots myself, And
were you ever asked to become a heel?
No. When me and Rick Martel split up, Rick was gone for almost a year, and I heard he was coming back. And I asked Vince, I wanted to be a heel because I said, I'm a good worker. I think I had seen other babyfaces turn heels, and they had done a pretty good job. I figured I could have another good run as a heel. And I asked Vince, I said, can I become the heel? Because then we're going to split us up. He says, no, you're going to stay the babyface. He says, I need you as a babyface. Well, they split us up, and they really never did anything. They put the Matador gimmick on me, but they never really did anything with the Matador gimmick either.
Right. So when you return to WWE, you meet Junior, right? You find out that he's going to take the business from Dad, right?
Yep.
Does he start sharing with you his overall, taking over the wrestling world? And at that point, do you agree with this kind of method, being that you grew up in the regions, you had a bunch of friends, you knew a lot of guys were going to get put out of business, or did you even believe you could do it?
Well, he didn't start sharing that with us. The people that started sharing that, I remember Pat Patterson is the one that would come in and say, okay, our TV is going to go into Montreal, our TV is going to start going into Minnesota, our TV, every 3 weeks, because we would do TV tapings, we'd find out we'd be going into, different territories. The move had begun.
When you first heard about the idea of WrestleMania, when you were told about it for the first time, did you think it would work?
We had no idea, but before, because I was good friends with Terry Funk, because Terry Funk was also from West Texas State, and he helped me. I almost gave up wrestling in Florida. Terry Funk was the world champion, and I had met him when I was playing football in college because he played football at West Texas State. So I told Terry, I said, I'm just going to go home and start getting ready for it, because I had signed another contract to go to play for the BC Lions again.
Wow.
And he says, let me talk to Eddie Graham. And then he talked to Eddie Graham, and that's when I started getting booked. Because I was just working out. I wasn't making any money. I still had to pay the rent for the apartment and food and expenses. So Terry Funk had told me that, he says, before you know it, he says, we're not going to be going into high schools anymore. We're going to be flying. It's going to be all over the place. And this was several
Terry
years.
saw it coming.
Yeah, several years before.
Nice. Well, here we are at WrestleMania.
Here we are at WrestleMania. So here comes WrestleMania. Why did they choose you to open up the match, and were you excited to be against Playboy Buddy Rose?
First ever match in WrestleMania
and
history.
Thoughts on Playboy Buddy Rose?
Nice.
Well, Playboy Buddy Rose was a great talent, but he wasn't in the territory, and under the mask it wasn't going to help any. There was no heat there,
right.
No heat between him and I.
It was just a match.
Right. I was in the middle of a feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine, where Greg and I were really selling out arenas, big arenas, with us in the main event, without Hogan being there. They put us in the card. We had, I don't know how many return matches we had. Hour Broadways, time limit Broadways, and we were drawing some money. So all of a sudden, we have the biggest event that's taking place. I had no idea where it was going to go, and I'm in the opening match. Yeah. And I'm pretty upset, because
really,
I'm pretty upset because now I'm opening up a card. To me, somebody opened up a card.
Yeah, back in the day,
opening up a card with no heat, while in the meantime you were selling out shows with Valentine.
Why am I not?
Yeah, what was that?
Why is my match not a big match in WrestleMania 1? And I'm pretty upset. I'm in the curtain, ready to go outside with an attitude. And right before I go through the curtains, Vince Jr. Walks up to me as I'm standing there behind the curtain, and he says, "Tito, the reason I put you in the first match is because I need for you to go out and get the people off their asses. This is you're the one that can do it. Right there, I had a different perception of what my job was, and it changed everything. And now that I'm years
First match in
later,
WrestleMania
it was
history.
the biggest thing. It turned out to be one of the biggest things in my career.
Here's the most important question, and you're on the spot here because we've had like Lanny Poffo, Greg Valentine, right? They've all told us.
Oh,
this.
here it comes, and they all answer.
What was
it.
the WrestleMania payday? WrestleMania 1, what was the payday?
They paid me
Dollars and cents.
$7,500
Okay.
for the opening match, and I was pretty pissed off.
I would be pissed.
Yeah, I'm
right now. I'm
actually-
pissed.
I'm annoyed.
I am.
Yeah.
Pissed.
I didn't do anything. I'm annoyed.
And I called.
I thought you were going to say $75,000.
No.
Yeah, what's going on
Holy
here?
shit!
And I called. I
lame.
called the office.
And
I
what did,
talked
Pat, Pat Patterson say? Come meet me in my back room. We'll have a talk.
No, thank God. Oh, look at him. No, William, no.
So
Oh my God.
I called the office and I talked to Jim Barnett,
Right.
Okay.
and I let him know that I wasn't happy about my payoff, and I ended up getting another check for $7,500. So I ended up getting $1,500.
All right.
$15,000.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little less annoyed, but I'm still
annoyed.
aggravated.
Two times. I mean, they.
Listen,
Hey.
you're definitely in the top 5 or 6 intercontinental.
Yeah.
For a wrestling
All time.
fan, the intercontinental
Yeah.
belt's a big deal. So
Yes.
I'm a little bit pissed.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon Jr. Share your opinions of him. You already said Senior, stand-up guy, everybody loves him. Vern, I guess you had an okay relationship with. Junior?
Junior was strictly a businessman. A lot of people would come into New York and they'd have a run, and as long as they, and I saw it, because I was here longer than anybody else, at the time when I had my run, and I saw a lot of guys come and go.
Oh, yeah.
And the guys would come in and they were making money, on top heels, and Vince was a great guy. But the run didn't last forever, and all of a sudden the run was over and Vince became a prick. With me, I experienced that Vince, when Vince dealt with the 2 top matches of the big cards, then they had the different agents that would deal with the other matches, how to set them up. So for a long time, I was dealing with Vince, when I was on top.
On top.
And, Vince would make you feel like you were the most important person in the world. And then when my run was over,
Crickets.
He wouldn't give me the time of day hardly,
Wow.
other than hi and bye. But I realized it's because he's got to go set up
Next.
the matches.
Right.
He's got to go take care of the TV. He was in charge of the production. He was in charge of everything. So he didn't have the time. But I realized, he's a businessman. Taking care the guys that were on top, making him the money. Those are the guys that he was making him. He'd walk up to you and smile, and like he wanted to kiss you. He loved you. Because you were the one making the money for him. When he was done, somebody else was dealing with you. Somebody else was setting up the matches.
Well, you were blessed to be a 2-time Intercontinental Champion, so I wanted to get to your second reign, which may seem on the surface to some to be almost a transitional champion when you pass it on to Macho Man Randy Savage. Any thoughts about the early days of the great Macho Man? Your opinion on Randy?
Well, the early days, they brought in Macho Man without a manager. You guys remember when everybody was fighting for him?
Yep.
And then they introduced Elizabeth. Well,
Sure.
Macho Man was doing TV tapings, and he was wrestling in house shows, and he wasn't getting any response whatsoever. He wasn't getting over. He didn't start getting over until they put him in with Elizabeth, and they ended up working the angle pretty good.
Wow.
I worked with Macho Man in Detroit, and I let him call the whole match, and we didn't hardly get any response, which usually I would get a response, but I would put in my 2 cents. But I wanted him to see. I let him do the whole match. There wasn't that many people there. So after the match, I talked to him and I said, Randy, I said, I threw more drop kicks tonight than I've had probably in a whole year here.
Right.
And I said, and you notice that they didn't mean shit. I said, here in New York, because he came back from Kentucky, they owned Kentucky, and he was the big dog in Kentucky. And to me, he was used to having jabroni matches, and you know, because that's what they were programmed in Kentucky. You know, high spot. I said, New York is different. New York, they want a fight and a little bit of wrestling. I said, they're used to Bruno Sammartino.
Yep.
Kicking and punching and
some
beating the shit
brawling.
out of somebody.
Yeah.
Is they want a fight and a little bit of wrestling. I said, you need to incorporate a fight and a little bit of of wrestling. And I'm sure you guys have heard Randy would come in with the 2 or 3 pages of the match, written up, and he would forget because he forgets some of the stuff, and he wasn't sharp enough to let's take it off and go from here to there.
So he wanted purely a scripted match from start to finish. He was, Lanny said he was a perfectionist, and you dealt with that. This is the first time dealing with someone at this I don't know, maybe OCD type of situation where he wanted everything exactly the way it was supposed to be.
Did you ever work with anybody as prepared as Randy?
Well, at that point, you're a bigger star than him.
Yeah.
Do you say, hey, look, dude, I'm going to tell you how that, like you just said, how it's going to be done, and was he open to it? So you tell him all this. What does he say to you?
Well, because I remember the first time that he got lost, and I got us back on track. I remember George Steele. He did the same thing with George, and George took the paper, and tore it up.
Chew on it and spit it up.
Hey, let's have this match. Okay.
So that
Right.
I think eventually he started weeding out of because we learned. Mr. Fuji taught me. He says you have to go in there and listen to the people. They'll tell you what they want. And at the beginning, I used to say, "What the hell is he talking about?"
So true, though.
Yeah. He says, "Listen to the people. Just they'll tell you what they want."
I'll tell you everything.
And that's why Jesse the Body was so good. The people want to come here and they want to be part of the show. So look at the people and get them involved, in the match and messing around with the people in the front row and stuff. It took Randy a while to master that, but he turned out to be one heck of a heel.
Oh boy!
But I think the fact they did it perfect.
The Elizabeth introduction was needed. She was as big as a star as he was, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, right? She was.
No, not at all.
It's great that you talk about her, though. The rumors about the way he treated Elizabeth in the back, locking her away from the boys. Is this true? Can you tell us a few stories, maybe?
Well, he was a very jealous man, and understandably, because the wrestlers in general. You guys know. How many wrestlers have lost a wife to another wrestler?
Yeah.
To me, that's as low as it gets.
Yeah, it's tough.
You gotta. Move into somebody.
So he had a right. He had a right to feel protective. He was just over the top.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
he knew the business, but he was extremely jealous, and he'd lock her up in the room, and you had a secret knock. I remember there was a guy. His name is Mark in Tampa, in Toronto. And he forgot to knock and he opened the door and squished him. He says, "I told you the secret knock." So
the secret knock.
Secret knock.
Oh my God, that's the knock.
Right.
Wow.
So he was definitely overprotective, and she was a beautiful woman.
Man.
Did you ever interact with her?
No. He didn't let anybody talk.
Just couldn't even talk to her.
No. I did team up with him, me and Rick, and 6-man tags, and we would talk a little bit over the finish and stuff like that. But that was it. There was no much interaction. That's why I was totally surprised, the way it turned out at the end. Where all of a sudden, I was with Randy Savage in Erie, Pennsylvania, when he got served with papers with divorce papers.
Oh my God.
And he was devastated. He left and went to Florida that night. And I'm sure you guys know the little heat there with Hogan.
Sure.
He blamed Hogan because supposedly she was. I mean, you hear a lot of crap, but supposedly she was having an affair with a policeman in Tampa, and she was having an affair with the guy that was making the movie with Hogan in Miami. So not only having one, she was having two different affairs. So I guess when Randy she got off the road and Randy was on the road. I think she just
cat's away.
Yeah, I mean she just got tired of being too much. I think, man. Who knows?
Perhaps. I want to move on. You wind up with gold again in Vince's company with the Strike Force, with the tag gold. I got to ask you your thoughts on Rick Martel, and this is driving me nuts. I want this man in the Hall of Fame. Do you feel that Rick Martel deserves to be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, without a doubt. I was talking to Eric on the way over here, and I said, there's got to be something that happened that this guy is not in the Hall of Fame. I mean...
Is there something that happened?
I don't know. I mean...
When's the last time you spoke to Rick Martel?
Probably a couple of years ago. He doesn't do too many appearances.
Your thoughts on his work as the model, because I thought that his heel work there was just stellar.
Well, I wanted to be the model. Yeah. Not necessarily the model. Right. I wanted to be the heel when we broke up. And because we had teamed up in the AWA before,
right.
And we had done really good things as partners over there. So when he came back as the model with the gimmick, I realized all this was under plans for a while, right. And I had
more snaky crap.
More snaky crap.
Right.
Why do you feel like the wrestling industry, like, they can't share their plans? Like, because you're going to go rogue and ruin it for them? Or, I mean, we talk about this all the time. I don't know if you watch the product nowadays, but they make sure that no one gets big enough that they're bigger than the company.
Yeah.
It points, Hogan.
The company
yourself,
is the star.
Savage.
Not the wrestlers.
Stone Cold. Right? They don't want that to happen.
That seems to
anymore.
be their method nowadays. Nobody can get too big anymore. You can't have a Hogan. Can't have an Austin. If they get too big, like Mike says, they pull you back. Yeah. The star is the logo.
So
right.
we have a show every Sunday, the Evan Ginsberg Show. He's associate producer for The Wrestler. Remember the movie The Wrestler?
Right, yeah.
So Evan is a big proponent for professional wrestlers having a union because a lot of guys are either, strung out, injured, whatever.
Medical.
And the WWE should, at least take care of them. Why? Where's the line, Miller?
The most eclectic show on the radio.
Thank you.
Bingo.
Why can't the professional wrestling group get together and unionize? Why are you guys this individual? Is it just about yourself?
Yes.
Why does this never happen?
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, Jesse the Body tried right before WrestleMania 1, and it went around, and a lot of the guys were going to get together and get a union.
Were you in on it? Were you like, I'm going for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of us were in on it.
You wanted it.
Yeah, we wanted it.
Why not?
Including Hulk Hogan. Well, a few days before Hulk Hogan, before the show, Hulk Hogan says, I'm not doing it. Well, Hulk Hogan was making $8 million a year. The next closest guy was making maybe $750,000 to $1 million. So Hogan wasn't willing to. Some of the guys that were on top, as the leaders, got let go right away when they found out they were pushing it. Those were the ones that were trying to, organize the whole thing.
They got the system.
So Billy,
cut.
Yeah.
Could it be possible that people were scared of Vince because Billy Jack Haynes was in last week, and he claims that Vince killed, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage.
Vince is behind everything.
Did you know Billy Jack Haynes at all?
Yeah.
Did you know Billy Jack Haynes was one of the major cocaine distributors in the 1980s?
I knew that he was. He almost got killed in Oregon with some of the dealers that he messed up or didn't.
So you
pay
had
him.
heard some circuits,
right? And they left
interesting.
him for dead, but I didn't know how. I wasn't friends with Billy Jack.
You had no
he was in
relationship.
New York for a little while,
right?
So,
You didn't run in his circle.
No,
gotcha.
No.
Interesting.
Who was your circle?
Besides Andre, who else were your buddies in this business?
Believe it or not, I used to hang out like with the bushwhackers,
I can see this.
That's a fun time.
Oh, hey!
with Mr. Wonderful,
Okay.
with Barry Darso and Bill Eadie.
Okay.
You know,
Demolition for the fans.
guys that weren't, really, there was the guys that were messed up with the drugs, and you know who they were.
Right.
So, like they would offer me stuff, and I said, no, I'm not going to take it because I'm never going to reciprocate.
Were you concerned though, getting in the ring with some of these guys that were lit up? Because I'm sure they were lit up getting in the ring with you, and this is a dangerous sport.
One wrong move,
yeah.
your neck, whatever.
You were concerned. I was concerned. So you were extra cautious when you knew, because you knew when they were really. But I saw people taking bumps in the locker room, before you going in and stuff. And,
Great.
So it was a scary situation, whenever you would go in a ring, because, somebody coming off the top rope with a knee on your chest, Rick Martel's brother got killed with a knee and, punctured, broke ribs and punctured his lung in Puerto Rico. And so you're off a little bit, it could be a deadly mistake, so you would get concerned. So once you get smart enough, you don't allow yourself to be in those situations.
Speaking of concerned, how concerned were you when they gave you the El Matador gimmick? I would have been concerned.
Well, I had talked to Vince, and I said, Vince, I'm not happy. You're not using me to my, I feel I have a lot more to offer than what you're getting, what you're giving me. You're not allowing me. He says, I got one more run for you. He says, would you be opposed to becoming a matador, going to Mexico and training to become a bullfighter? I said, if you're going to give me a push, I said, I'll do whatever you want. So he did. He sent me to Mexico, and he rented the whole arena, and he spent a lot of money. The guys that were there filming told me, he's going to give you a big push because he's spending a lot of money. Well, at the time, I think they were planning on going into Mexico, South America, Central America, Spain, because I had wrestled in Spain against The Undertaker in '92, and I beat him in Spain.
Wow.
We were the main event. We sold out, the place. So I figured they were getting me ready to because Pat Patterson is the one that kept telling me, we're going to go into South America, Central America. And I know, because Bruce Pritchard again told me that they were considering me. They were going to put the belt on me, he told me.
Wow.
So I don't think I needed the El Matador gimmick. And I never liked it because they didn't push it. If they would have pushed it, I would have liked it. Me doing the Matador gimmick, I don't know how good I did the gimmick, but I don't think I needed a gimmick.
You were fine for what they asked you to
Right.
do. It wasn't
Right.
on you.
For me as a fan, I thought it was almost insulting. Right? You had this career, and I remember the time they're dressing everybody up and everything. So I guess
Yeah, it was
they had to
also
get
that
along,
time
but
period, too, right? Fair.
I wasn't
Yeah.
happy with it. I had a lot of respect for your work, and I was like, I just didn't like it. I thought you could stand on your own for sure.
When you see the high flyers of today, and you see how wrestling has changed, everybody's become a gymnast almost. It seems like that. You were flying around way before these people. How do you feel? Do you feel like the business has improved with all the flying around, or do you wish it would be somewhere in the middle, a little bit more of the, like you said, a fight and a wrestling match? I mean, what should wrestling be today in your mind?
I'm not a fan. I don't watch it.
Fair enough.
I can't tell you. The last time I watched it was when the Undertaker, the Ultimate Warrior WrestleMania. I was at a WrestleMania party, and
A long time ago.
and they paid me to watch it, so I watched it.
All right, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's
So-
hilarious.
so that-
That's hilarious. All right, is it over? Arriba. That's great.
But I know
Very
Steve Kern,
Steve Kern.
and I would see Steve Kern, and he would say, 1 week they want you to do this, 1 week they don't want you to be a worker like we were. That now they do stuff for no reason. They just do really, really high risk maneuvers.
Yes.
that really doesn't mean crap.
No storyline.
Yeah.
No storyline, no passion.
And 50-50 booking. Like, let's say you beat me this week, I get to beat you next week. Doesn't that sound exciting? You're going to really get over now.
So
no one knows who you are if you're mediocre. Everybody's 50-50 booking now.
We're getting towards
a
the
lot
end.
of them.
We're getting towards the end. Tito, in this great career that you've had, what would you consider the highlight of your career?
Wow. There's a lot to go through.
And there is a lot to
There's
go
a
through.
lot to go through.
Probably looking back, the highlight of my career was when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame. When Pedro Morales got inducted into the Hall of Fame, the first Hall of Fame was in Baltimore in a hotel. They had maybe 100 people there. You know, they inducted him and about four guys. They inducted him into the Hall of Fame, the WWE.
Mm-hmm. And you were inducted in 2004.
Yeah, it was nothing. You know, I think that was in 2000. It was nothing. So when Howard Finkel called me and says, they want to induct you into the Hall of Fame in 2004, to me it didn't mean nothing because I had been to that one. So I, like I said, when I left, I wasn't watching it, so I didn't realize how big it was getting. So I said, well, how much am I going to get paid? So I don't know if you guys know this, but in general, I think the guys that they bring in, they pay them $5,000. So that's what that's what the going rate was.
Plus flight and
plus
hotel
flight, all
stuff,
expenses and everything. So when he told me $5,000, I said, yeah, I'll get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
What if they would have offered you nothing?
I wouldn't have gone.
You would have said that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I asked how much.
Yeah.
Like the $1 Million Man says, everybody has a price. You know, you have to pay me something.
Yeah.
But when I got they flew my brother, my sister-in-law, my mom, my I think another sister from Texas. They got us 4 hotels downtown New York. They sent 2 limousines to my house to pick us up. And I didn't know any of this was.
You're treated like a king.
Yeah, they got treated like a king. Arrived in New York, and then it's when I saw.
Realized.
That's when I saw all the fans. I said, "God,
oh my God,
what is this?" You know, I feel like I was like
a Hall of Famer from a major
right.
promotion. Yeah, that's what you are.
Well, you are. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Except when it ends, they probably had a cab waiting for you at the end, right?
No.
They take the yellow cab
and a Wendy's coupon. What?
So, and then when the Hall of Fame, the night when I had to do the speech.
Yeah. What a class, by the way. That whole class was awesome.
Class.
Yeah.
Greg was in that class.
My wife kept saying, "Do you know what you're going to talk about?" I said, "No, I don't." And I saw all these guys with Morocco had pages of notes and stuff, and I said, "I'm just going to thank I had gone through some tragedies in my family, and I talked about, I just spilled it from my heart, and I thank the people that I felt I could have been the world champion. I wasn't. Even with that, I felt like I was very blessed and I had a great career.
Oh my Lord! Yeah.
And my family. I was able to put all my kids through college. They all have great educations. They're all doing fantastic, and I felt blessed. So I just felt like thanking everybody.
Don't forget the salon.
Right?
Yeah, you got all of this going on.
Well, I could tell you, we as fans, first of all, we feel blessed that you were in this profession. You were one of the greatest of all time, and we feel blessed to have you on the show. And we feel blessed to have Eric Sims in from ESS. Eric.
Go on over, big
Come
guy.
on in, big man.
Give him the form.
No BS with ESS.
You want to share where Mr. Santana will be for the rest of the weekend?
All right. So, from 1 to 3 p.m., we will be at the Wrestling Universe in Queens, New York. So, Francis Lewis Boulevard. Anybody that's a wrestling fan knows where the Wrestling Universe is. So come check us out at the Wrestling Universe from 1 to 3 p.m. And then tonight we will be in Bayville, New Jersey, SWF live at the Elks Lodge, and Tito has a big match tonight with Rhett Titus, and Rhett's in Ring of Honor, and one of the young bucks from Ring of Honor, not the young bucks, but one of the young talents over at Ring of Honor, and he's a hell of a talent that lives in the area. So it's gonna be almost like a dream match down there, and it's gonna be really fantastic. And then. So that's where Tito and I are going to be for today, and the Road to WrestleCon tour. Next stop is WrestleCon, and Tito will be there at his table, and I will have Val Venus and Billy Jack Haynes at my table, and it's going to be a fun weekend at WrestleMania weekend, April 5, 6, and 7.
It's a big weekend. What are you laughing at?
Just don't get too close to Billy Jack Haynes.
There's going to be something behind that.
I'm not done with my plugs yet. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Billy Jack. Go on.
Please, I have to put the website out now. Thank you.
You're on a roll.
Thank you. Okay. So anyway, all the information about ESS and all its talents and wherever I'm going to be with my talents is www.esspromotions.com, and we know all the catchphrases. No BS with ESS. We're all sensational, and remember, business and success end in ESS.
Excellent. Tito, it's been our pleasure. We wish you only the best of luck. You are a hero of many, and we thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Tito.
Sure.
All right, Pharaoh, send us out, brother.
I'm not sending us out. I want him to send us out with his Ariba.
Give it to us, Tito.
Well, I'll do it like this,
goodnight,
and then
Gracie.
Tito, let's hit it with an Ariba. Catch Monty the Pharaoh every Thursday, 8:05 to 9 p.m. only here at Village Connection Radio. Coming up on the 4th, we've got Coco Beware, and then after that, we'll be promoting the DVD release of 350 Days. Are you in that?
Yes, I am.
I know you are. That's a quick move by me.
There you go.
So you also see Tito Santana in 350 Days. The associate producer, Evan Ginsberg, will have Greg Valentine either by Skype or in studio. Coco is already in with us, and then Coco will continue on. And if you're lucky enough, you'll get to see me dance with Coco to Pile Driver.
I quit.
You know what I'm looking forward
don't
to?
dance to Pile Driver.
Coco's a great talent. I'm looking for Stan Hansen. That's a
later on.
That's a great interview.
Speaking of Pile Driver, I'm a little pissed off they didn't put you in that video.
Tito and Pile Driver?
Do you remember that video,
Why?
Pile Driver?
The wring album.
The wrestling album?
He's trying to forget it. Look at him.
You were part of that, right?
I thought I was.
You were in, but you weren't in the video. You were on the album. I think you're in
Right.
the Land of a Thousand Dances. You're
Yeah.
in that video. Were you actually singing in that?
Yes.
Did you enjoy that?
I'm not much of a singer, but
They make you sound like $1 million.
Right.
Well, anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining. Mr. Santana, send us out.
Arriba!
Nice.
Conversation that all dead. The lines cut off inside my head. I left here like a broken man with no idea of where I stand. Oh, my mind clear. Lord, I shed all my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on. security. This newfound freedom you kept from me. The sound of all your loaded guns. This outbreak war has just begun. The sound of all your loaded guns. This broken man has already won. Oh, my mind.